This video is now in session, and a few days ago, Cheri Bustos announced her retirement from the U.S. House of Representatives, which was a particularly surprising announcement given her age and as well as her leadership positions. She's 59 years of age. And for politics, that's pretty young to retire. Most people do it 2 decades from 59, 79 years old. Some people go even further than that. So that's one thing that was surprising about this retirement announcement. But also, she holds a lot of leadership positions from the DCCC and from other committees. So her retirement from Illinois 17th District, who she represents, is pretty surprising, but not completely unexpected. In 2012, she won the House seat of the 17th District for the first time with a margin of 53 percentage points to the incumbent's 46 percentage points. So that was not a completely wide gap, but it wasn't also a completely narrow gap. And then fast forward to 2014, she won by 55%, and then she won by 60% in 2016. In 2018, she won by 62%. But then in 2020, she won by 52%, the narrowest margin of victory she's had since the inception of her tenure at the House. So, so it's not completely unexpected for that reason in it of itself, which is that the 17th district has gotten way more Republican in recent years, and it was because of Donald Trump that enabled Republicans to make the 17th district back to being competitive, even with Cheri Bustos as the incumbent. So her retirement should spell something bad for Democrats in 2022, because even though it's just one retirement, we're also seeing at the same time that that there's still 1.5 years till the election, and the fact that there's already one retirement should be troubling to Democrats, with more Democrats potentially retiring before the 2022 election. And their retirements are mainly indicated by the fact that they think that either they're too old to run again or that they will not win their re-election. So rather than losing a re-election, they instead retire so that Democrats or Republicans have the chance to actually get that seat. This happened in 2020 with many Republicans retiring. If you go to many of these House seats, you will not see an asterisk, which means that they are not the incumbent and that the incumbent has retired. And you can see that Republicans have retired in many of these House races. And that was predicated by the fact that Republicans thought that they were going to lose more House seats than 2018 numbers. In 2018, Democrats won around 237 seats. Democrats were expected to gain more House seats in 2020. Now, obviously, hindsight shows us that that never came to fruition, and Republicans flipped 15 seats. But for Democrats, it's a much unlikelier scenario for that to occur, where a slew of Democrats retire, and then Democrats still win the majority, just because of redistricting and gerrymandering by the Republicans, and as well as it being a midterm cycle. So the odds at this point are stacked against Democrats. If you asked the chances of Democrats retaining the House, it would probably be less than 20%. Because they cannot afford to lose any of their House seats, and they're most likely going to lose House seats through redistricting. If you watch the redistricting policies series, then you'll know that Republicans are going to gerrymander a lot of states to then eliminate the competitions. They're going to try to redistrict competitive seats like Kansas's 3rd district. Like Indiana's 1st district. They could even gerrymander in Indiana's 7th district so that every single district in Indiana is Republican. They can do the same thing for Florida, where they can flip a lot of Democratic seats over to Republican control. In Texas, they're gaining 2 House seats, which means that they can both gerrymander those seats and as well as these 3 seats in the southern region of Texas. where the middle seat right here, Texas's 15th district, is particularly competitive, and they can redistrict the 28th and the 34th to be more favorable for them. So just through these changes alone, Republicans will be able to win. And the second thing, though, is that Democrats really cannot. Democrats are in a tough position because even with Joe Biden having a lot of plans to revitalize the American economy, in his view, ultimately a lot of that will not come to fruition. The American Jobs Plan, the American Families Plan, they're both incredibly, they're both plans that could revitalize the economy and could be politically good for Democrats. But that's exactly the problem, because Republicans will only just filibuster that. And as a result, it goes back to 2014, where in 2014, a lot of voters were unhappy at the Democratic Party, at both parties, but particularly the Democratic Party, for not doing anything in government, for complete gridlock. So if the same thing occurs between now and 2022, then the same thing will happen, and then 2014 will just reappear for Democrats in 2022. But obviously the Democratic leadership knows this, and they're aware of how screwed they are in 2022 if they don't pull off all of their tricks. But ultimately, it's up to the hands of Joe Manchin, and it's up to the hands of policies being actually passed through the Senate for the Democrats to have a chance in 2022. And in terms of seats that can flip for Democrats, there's really not many seats that can flip for Democrats, at least not any existing seats. They could try to get Virginia's 5th district. They could try to get back California's 21st district, as well as California's 25th district, and as well as the Orange County districts. But that's at the same time, though, they weren't able to do that in 2020, and now a lot of these Republican candidates who were not the incumbent will now be the incumbent, and the incumbency advantage is definitely present in House races. David Vallado, as well as Mike Garcia, not Mike Garcia, but David Vallado, as well as Yun Kim and Michelle Steele, they're now incumbents, as well as Bob Good. Bob Good's now an incumbent. Peter Mayer of Michigan's 3rd District, now an incumbent. So it becomes much harder for Democrats to take these seats. Now, obviously, these seats will be redistricted in 2022, and it will be a completely different map, but considering the states that Democrats control the redistricting process, there's not really many opportunities for Democrats to gain seats. They can only do it in New York, Illinois, New Mexico, and as well as potentially Oregon. But even with Oregon might even give the second House seat over to Republicans. So it's a complete it is a catch-22 for Democrats. Anything that they do, it still results in Democrats being the unfavorable party for winning the House and for Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker again. So that actually brings up the question of, will Nancy Pelosi run for re-election? That is going to be a big question, because when Paul Ryan said he was not running for re-election in 2017 and 2018, that spelled a lot of trouble for Republicans, and it truly at that point cemented the Republicans' defeat in the House. So we'll have to see if Nancy Pelosi does the same thing. If she does the same thing, then in her eyes, the Democratic Party has no hope for a 2022 win, and by resigning, she would be saying that implicitly. So it's interesting to watch this race pull out and have and it's interesting to see this kind of race with a redistricting year happening right before it, but ultimately Republicans are still favored. And Cheri Bustos affirmed that by announcing her retirement 1.5 years before the midterm election. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.